going live on all the other channels. Give me one moment. Let me see if I can. Okay, going live on Instagram. Please bear with me. Go. Okay, I think that worked. There we go. Right. Cool. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle, and this is the AI with Kyle show. Every single morning at around 10:11 a.m. UK time, I'm going to go into the AI news and updates of the day, as well as take live questions from the audience who are coming in from TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all over the internet to ask questions about what on earth is going on in the world of artificial intelligence. And that's a fair question this week. So it looks a lot like we're going to be getting ChatGPT version 5. So GPT-5 is the model that is probably going to be dropping today. There's a lot of hints pointing in that direction. Everyone's pretty certain it's going to be today. We know it's going to be in August, and they always release on Thursdays. And we've just heard that there is going to be a live stream. So our live stream tomorrow, this is coming from Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, the creators of ChatGPT. He's saying our live stream tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time will be longer than usual, around an hour. We have a lot to show and hope you can find the time to watch. So if you're in the UK, that's 6 p.m. We can sit down, maybe with a beer, and watch, I think, the release of ChatGPT 5, which is exciting. This is a big moment, and I'm going to talk about why. It's not for the reasons most people think, but we're going to have a discussion. I'd also love to hear from the people in the comments what they're excited about, or if maybe you're not excited at all, maybe you are bored of all of these new models and they will feel the same, which is, I think, a valid concern. He also tweeted a picture of, well, it's the Death Star, definitely the Death Star over a planet. Very enigmatic, no text at all, just a picture of the Death Star. So it's a planet destroyer. I don't know exactly what the meaning of this is. Let's see if commenters have worked it out. He isn't posting this unless he has max conviction they're about to blow our socks off. So I think he's saying our model is going to come along and it's going to destroy everything that's come before. What I think, maybe, and this is speculation, but I think this image that we're seeing on Twitter, a picture of the Death Star, basically, I think it's also been generated by whatever their new image model is. That would be my guess here. When Sam does these enigmatic tweets, it tends to have multiple layers of meaning. So he's probably using their new visual model in order to make a statement about, we are going to absolutely destroy you. We're going to destroy every single other model out there. He's posting it on Twitter as well, which it's telling, because obviously that's Elon Musk's platform, and the two of them have a rivalry, squabbling billionaires. So in terms of what we can expect, I think it's no longer important if the model is more powerful or not. All of the models are really powerful. That kind of is taken for granted. They're all so powerful now that it doesn't really matter how much incrementally better they get, because that additional power is going to be used in very niche cases, like in mathematics, in engineering, in coding. That's a bit of a wider one, but for the general public, they don't care. I think the exciting thing about GPT-5, from the speculation and the rumors and what people have been talking about, is that they're going to start to unify the model. So one of the problems right now is that when normal people, everyday people, not people who are watching live streams like this, not people who are watching, YouTube videos about artificial intelligence, but normal people in the street, when they use ChatGPT, they default to, right now it defaults to 4.0, which is the kind of best general use model at the moment. Most people do not know that there is a drop down, and they, even when they do find that drop down, it's overwhelming. So let me quickly see what's on it right now. This is when I find out I've got GPT-5. No, I don't. So the drop down is hidden away at the top and it just says ChatGPT 4.0. There's no reason for you to click on that if you don't know what you're looking for. So you click on that and it says GPT 4.0, great for most tasks. Fine. O3 uses advanced reasoning. O4 mini, fastest at advanced reasoning. O4 mini high, great at coding and visual reasoning. It's already getting confusing. And a few more. GPT 4.5, good for writing and exploring ideas. GPT 4.1, great for quick coding and analysis. GPT 4.1 mini, faster for everyday tasks. I work with this stuff every day. I don't know what the difference is between most of these models. I will use GPT 4.0 and GPT 03. That's it. The other ones are fine. Like you'd use Mini if you're doing API work, if you're building with it. And then, I mean, I played around with 4.5 and 4.1, but I never use them extensively. So for most people, the 700 million users of ChatGPT out there, the people who are using this, the public who are using this on a daily basis, they're not opening this little drop down. And if they did, they would rightfully be absolutely confused and be like, oh, I'm not touching that again. I'll just use whatever the default is, which is 4.0. That's fine. 4.0 is very good. But what this means is for the last, well, sorry, since the beginning of generative AI and ChatGPT, most users have not been using reasoning models. They've been using the standard model. So they put in a question, they ask ChatGPT for something, and ChatGPT will spit out an answer, which may be right, may be wrong. Because they haven't been using the reasoning models, that hasn't allowed them to kind of get to the next stage of how we use artificial intelligence. And I think this is part of the reason why a lot of people just use ChatGPT as a replacement for Google. Absolutely fine for that, but it's not the best use of it. Whereas O3 allows you to think through problems and to tackle larger projects with your artificial intelligence. It's a more sophisticated use of artificial intelligence that I think a lot of people have missed out on because it's so hidden away in the UI. I think what's going to happen with this new release, and I think this is the important thing, is they're going to unify it so that normal people, the 700 million users of ChatGPT, suddenly now have access to a reasoning model. For those people who haven't known about O3, they don't know about R1, they don't know about all these other reasoning models we've had, for them, it's going to seem like ChatGPT is suddenly an absolute genius because they've gone from using the basic model to suddenly using something more advanced that can think through a problem. I'm air quoting that if you're listening to the audio version, heavy air quotes on thinking. So for them, they're going to be like, oh, wow, GPT-5 is amazing. I think that's the important thing here is that 700 million people are about to have that experience with ChatGPT that we've already had, but they're about to catch up. And I think that's really cool. I think the other thing, okay, I think there's three levels here. There's things that I'm excited about. I'm excited about it having a larger context window. That has not been confirmed, but at the moment, ChatGPT's context window, the amount of memory, the amount of information it can work with is tiny, and it's much, much smaller than Claude and Gemini, especially Gemini. So that's really what's holding it back. Obviously, expanding that context window and allowing more tokens costs them more money. That's why they haven't done it. But that would be the game changer for me, and I think for most advanced users of ChatGPT. I'd also like to see some more hallucination safeguards. You cannot get rid of hallucinations. That's just part of large language models. It's part of the stochastic nature of predicting the next token. So there's always going to be filling in the gaps, basically. What you can do is build on top of that things that check its assertions against websites, for example. So you can add a layer of search on top and after it gives you an answer in order to verify it. And that can be built into chain of thought as well, built into the reasoning model. So I'd love to see that as well, because that's going to help everyday users be more trusting in ChatGPT. Because right now, one of the main reasons people don't use it, and a good reason, is that it makes stuff up. And it really can. And unless you know how to work around that and you know to check for it, it can be damaging. So I'd love to see that as well. They're my wish list. I'd love to see larger context window and better hallucination safeguards. I don't care if it's smarter. That's not important. It's these two things. I think for the game changer for the general public will be a unified model. So having access to a reasoning model without having to ask specifically for a reasoning model, I think that's going to be really important. I think what's going to get the most attention and what's going to be flooding Twitter and social media for the next few days, next few weeks, will be video and image generation. So they already have these tools built in. They have a DALL-E based image generation, and Sora is for video, but it's kind of cut off from the rest of the experience. I think that's going to be embedded and made more widely available, and that's what's going to allow them to have a viral moment and to be seen, because things like reasoning, things like how you can use ChatGPT at work, useful, and that's what we actually use it for, but it's not very sexy, it's not very visual, it's not very exciting on social media. What is are videos of people cutting over open cakes and there's a galaxy inside or whatever. So I think they'll probably have a bit of pizzazz from their photo and video generation, and that's what we're going to be seeing on social media. But I think the actual improvement here will be a unified user interface, which is very boring sounding, but boring can be important. There are some, we do know though that there are 3 models, which is confusing. Let me find what they were. There was there's one called Mini and one called Nano, I think. Here we go. So GPT-5, GPT-5 Mini, and GPT-5 Nano. So these icons have basically leaked. I think they're in the API documentation, and they came out yesterday. So we have a fairly good idea that there are 3 models. I don't think that these are going to be accessible via the UI inside the chatbot. I think that these are for the API. They're for people who are building with these models. I think that GPT-5 will be the unified model, which is basically 4.0, the general model, plus 0.3, the reasoning model, put together and improved. I think that's going to be the case. This is all speculation, though. Absolutely. So we'll see. We will find out. Everything I'm saying could be wrong. Everything everyone is saying could be wrong, and they could have something completely different. But this is what it seems to be pointing at, and we will find out, I think, today at 6 p.m. UK time, or what was it, 11 a.m.? I've gotten Pacific time, or 10 a.m. Pacific time. So hopefully it's going to be an exciting day, and I'm not on holiday, so I can actually talk about it tomorrow. So I'll spend this evening using it. So tell me, I'm going to switch over to chat and see what people are thinking about GPT-5, if they're excited or if people don't care. Maybe the I mean, I do notice a lot of people get bored with the rate of novelty, the rate of change in AI, and I think that's fair. It's like a torrent of information. Here's a good question. Will ChatGPT 5 release only in America or the UK too? So historically, they have done their announcement generally on a Thursday and immediately released it in America. What has happened is the servers kind of need to come online. So lots of people in America will be sitting there, refreshing, hoping to get access. And then eventually you'd be like, oh, I've got it. As it starts to propagate around the country. Then they tend to do the rest of the world, then they do the UK, and then they do the EU, sometimes with a much longer delay on the EU. That may be even longer now because the EU AI Act is now in force as of the 1st of August. We do not know, but previously there's always been this kind of staggered delay, and that might be even worse now. Sorry. It's only that's a value judgment. It might be even longer now because of the regulation from the AI EU Act. They haven't mentioned anything about it. What I would say is it should work as well this time. You can use a VPN to VPN over to America to get access to the models. So that's what I plan on doing. I'll be switching my VPNs over later in the afternoon, scrolling around, making sure it looks like I'm in America. And then when it comes to 6 p.m., hopefully I will be in the US rollout rather than the UK rollout, because it generally takes a few weeks. Or in the case of, what was it, Sora? Sora took months and months and months to make it over to the UK and the EU, which is very frustrating. Tough Guy says, do you have a podcast I can listen to? So what I'm doing now, this live, which comes out every single morning, we tidy it up into a YouTube video. So we get rid of most of my ums and ers, the silences, me drinking water loudly through this very nice professional microphone, which picks up absolutely everything, unfortunately. So we tidy it up, we make it sound nicer, we chop into clips, etc., etc. But we also put the cleaner recording onto iTunes and to Spotify, so it can be listened to as a podcast as well. Obviously, you can't see what I'm looking at on screen. That's the same if you're on TikTok anyway. So I try to explain what I'm seeing, but obviously that's difficult at times. So yes, it's on iTunes and it is on Spotify. I think it's on other things too. We upload it to Podbean, and Podbean sends it everywhere. What else have we got? Ooh. Just joined. What's the update? RE GPT-5 and what will be the difference? Yeah, I just covered this. So we will find out tonight, basically. I won't go into all the details because we don't know. It's all speculation, but it looks like it's launching at 6 p.m. UK time or 10 a.m. Pacific time. So we're going to know at that point. But the general broad gist was I'm excited for a larger context window, which is very unexciting, but I think is very useful. I think the game changer is going to be a unified model. So giving the 700 million users access to a reasoning model without them having to think about it. And then I think the big viral moment will probably be through image and video generation. That's going to be what we'll see. But the important stuff is going to be much more boring. It's going to be things like context windows and user interface and user experience design, the unsexy stuff, but stuff that actually matters. But we will find out. This is all speculation. We will find out tonight. Okay, so something that I covered the other day, and I knew it was going to be a problem. I brought this up live on one of my calls. Was a Labour MP up in West Yorkshire, a guy called, I'm going to find his name, Mark Seward. He created an AI avatar of himself. And I brought it up on the live chat and tried to talk to it and got booted off as soon as I asked about Gaza. And I got several unhelpful answers from it. I asked some like hot topic questions in the UK about migrants, for example, and it was like, nope, not going to answer that. So any actual questions about controversial issues, it would immediately say, no, I'm not gonna answer that, basically. And then eventually, I think I got kicked off, which is great. Anyway, I said at the time, I don't think this is going to go well for him. And lo and behold, 2 days later, it's not going very well for poor Mark Seward. So the Express, which is a newspaper in the UK, they have a headline which is "Useless Twit, Labour MP sparks fury with AI bot as critics say do your job." And then they've got a bunch of tweets from people like, maybe you should do your actual job instead. You're a useless twit. In effect, you've made yourself even more inaccessible to your constituents than you already have. Lazy and condescending. I hope they vote you out at the next opportunity, etc., etc. So it got a lot of anti-AI backlash, which I thought was interesting. So instead of, the intention here, I think is good, is to create a chatbot which allows you to have access to the information about Mark Seward, and to technically have a discussion and ask about like his voting history, what he thinks about certain policies, etc. That's quite useful. However, there's two problems. One is that lots of people do not like AI, and they've immediately attacked him saying you're lazy, because they are assuming that this he's using as a replacement. So that's a messaging problem. Mark Seward and his team should have said, this is not replacing me. This is a supplement. I'm still doing the rounds. I'm still meeting constituents. I'm doing everything that I normally did. This is just an additional way. That has obviously not come across, or the people are choosing to ignore it. Because other comments like, does that mean we can save on your salary and expenses? Resign and give somebody else the chance to take your seat, as obviously you can't be bothered to take the time to review your request personally, etc., etc. This is what they have taken from it. So that's one problem. They've had a messaging problem, and people think he's replaced himself with the AI, which is not the case. It's just an additional chatbot. The second thing is it's giving unexpected answers and or it's refusing to answer anything. So this was what I had personally when I went and tried it out, was that after signing up and getting a one-time password, and there was lots of hoops to get in, it wasn't very accessible. After all of that, I'd ask it questions, and the moment it touched upon something that was even vaguely controversial, the chatbot would say, "Oh, no, you have to talk to my team about that." So I was unable to get any information. Nope, that's not true. It told me about its policies on traffic control and speed limits. So that's all I got from it. So it means that even if you are interested in AI, even if you are willing to chat to a chatbot, the actual answers you get from it are not going to be very satisfying. So I don't really know who this is for, because the people who are anti-AI hate it and they think Mark Seward's lazy. The people who are happy to try out and talk to an AI MP will use it and be like, well, it's not very good. It's not very helpful. So I don't see what the use case is. I don't see who this is for. Again, I think this is the way we will go. I think most government departments will have chatbots, for example. And I think most MPs, most public figures will probably have some kind of AI presence like this. And I applaud him for being at the forefront and taking the flak. But the implementation is not particularly good. I'm just having a look. Yeah, so this is what I got. The question response is that I'm not able to provide specifics on my voting history on the time at this time. This newspaper, they asked him about migrant hotels, asylum hotels, and it was met with, "I'll make sure to pass your inquiry about asylum hotels in Leeds, Southwest and Morley to my team." So it diverts. To be fair, a politician would do exactly the same. You ask them a direct question, they're not going to give you a direct answer. So maybe it's just truthful. But I think all in all, this is going about as well as I thought it would, which is not very well for this guy. And I applaud him for the effort. And I'm sure they will shut it down within the next couple of days because it's going to be too much trouble. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they thought would happen, whether they thought that this would be met with wide approval and excitement. But I don't think the team is getting the reaction that they expect. So I bet it's gone by next week, but we'll see. Let's hop over to the questions and see where we're at. Your advice is excellent. Thank you. I don't know what on, but I'll take that. I had one, I could probably put it up. I had a troll in my comments. The trolls I get, or a lot of them they're quite eloquent and kind of, they sound like they're not trolling. So I have, for better or worse, I have quite intelligent trolls, and they'll say something like a very sensible argument, and then at the end, kind of dig in the knife. It's like, oh, nasty. So it's very nice when people just say, "Oh, thank you, for doing these videos. I do appreciate that," because not very many people do. So thank you. Most people are very angry on the internet for whatever reason. What do you think of the company selling GPUs of upgradable VRAM up to 384 gigabytes a second? I don't know anything about that, but if you tell me the name of the company, I'm happy to look at it and potentially cover it tomorrow. But that's pretty fast. Choosing between creative job and real job, parents are pushing towards nursing. AI affecting art jobs. I mean, nursing's not a bad one, honestly. I actually mentioned this yesterday. Somebody asked, they said, I don't know how to code. What kind of jobs will be improving? What kind of jobs will, be the market for them will be improving rather than deteriorating, which is a hard question to answer. But one of them was nursing, for a couple of reasons. It's non-algorithmic, so what you do on a day-to-day basis is very hard to consolidate into a simple set of instructions because it's going to be very, very different on different days. Two, it requires human empathy. So it's a human-to-human interface, and you need to sometimes calm people down. You need to, make people feel less scared, etc. Humans are still better at that. And three, it's physical. robotics is still very far behind artificial intelligence or generative AI specifically. So until robotics catches up, physical jobs are still safer. So nursing is a combination of those three, not just nursing, but anything to do with the care profession. So this could be, working in a nursing home. This could be social work. A lot of caring professions still require these three elements: non-algorithmic, empathy-based, and physical, which means they're going to be, at least for now, safer than white collar jobs. So anything where you're basically sitting at a computer, filling in an Excel sheet and doing the same thing day in, day out, not necessarily talking to people, and you're at a computer, that's the stuff that's at risk. So that's why white collar jobs are going to be more at risk than something like nursing. But choosing between a creative job and a real job, parents are pushing nursing. This is for you personally, Ronald. AI affecting art jobs. I would say the problem with art jobs is art has always been a hard way to make money. So I'm talking not just of pure art, but also the creative industries like kind of advertising, fashion, photography, etc., which have more money, but it's always been a hard way to make money. So AI, I think, accelerates that by making a lot of the kind of entry roles obsolete, because it can help with a lot of the basic stuff. So I think the creative industry is going to be increasingly tough. It's already difficult. It has been difficult for decades. I think it's going to get even harder. So by all means, pursue a creative outlet. Absolutely do that. But I think it's more and more difficult to rely on that as your primary source of income, unfortunately, which is a shame. That's one of the uses of AI I'm not very excited about. I do love human creativity and human art, but the economics of the situation is most art and most kind of advertising companies and marketing companies and fashion photography shoots, etc. Most of the stuff they do is workaday stuff. It's just stuff to pay the bills, and that's what AI is going to be coming for. So we tend to think of art as the things in the galleries, etc. That's not really where the money is. The money is in the everyday stuff, doing commercial work for companies generally, for better or worse. And that is going to be taken by AI, which is going to remove the ability and the freedom and the space to do more, highbrow art, pure creativity for the sake of creativity. So what I would do personally, I would have a job or a business which allows me an income, ideally allows me to get that income within 3 to 4 days a week, so I have extra days to work on my art on the side. I think that's probably the balance. Artists have been doing this for years already. I think with AI, this is going to be even more the case. Trying to make money from the art is going to become difficult, but if you free up your time and have time just to create, without the expectation that it needs to pay the bills and it needs to put food on the table, I think that's probably going to be the sensible way forward. But you know best. You know what your art is and what your skills are. But generally, I would say that's probably the way to go. Brand says OpenAI dropping that 20 bill open source model is crazy. So yesterday, OpenAI, they're having a busy week. Yesterday, OpenAI dropped GPT-OSS, and it comes in two forms, two flavors, 20B and 120B. So that's basically the size of the model. So 20B is a small one, which can theoretically work on telephones. It's very slow, and I don't see anyone who's done that successfully yet. But correct me if I'm wrong if you've seen it in live. And the 120B is you need a proper machine with some GPUs, but they're open source. So the big thing is that they've given away these models, including the weights. So you can poke around inside, you can see how it is built specifically, and then you can build on top of it. You can fine tune it, you can do what you want with it, which is very different to their normal models, which are closed off. You cannot see what's going on inside. You can pay to get access to it, and you're basically sending information in and it sends information back out, but you don't see what's happening in here. With an open source model, you literally get to download that file and you can have it on your computer and you can poke around and do what you want with it. I think the only reason why they're confident enough to release the open source model is because they know GPT-5 is dropping today. So yesterday they dropped the open source models. Today they're like, okay, I'm glad you love those open source models, but now here's something that's going to blow your socks off, something that's so much better that you're still going to be using our paid for models. You're still going to use our private models. So I think it's fantastic that they've dropped these, and especially that they've made them open source. But what it mainly tells me is that they're extremely confident about what is dropping today with GPT-5. Because if what they release is just as good as these open source models, or just only slightly better, they have shot themselves in the foot by releasing the open source models, because they've given away for free, the open source, and then expecting people to pay on this side. That's going to be really tricky. So I think it's positive. It's fantastic that they are open source, and it also tells us that GPT-5 is going to be really good. That's my hope, at least. How do people run really large models at home? Everyone got supercomputers at home or something. So you can buy GPUs. I would not recommend it. They are extremely expensive. Let's see how much they are right now. An H100 is a refurbished H100 is £24,000. You'd need a few of those. So it's not very practical. So what you do instead is you rent. So you can rent a cloud server. I'm just trying to find one. Who's the one? Vast AI. I mean, you can do it through Google. You can do it through AWS. Lambda. Lambda is the one that I like. I've totally forgotten the name. So I'll put it up on the screen as well. So Lambda is one of multiple hosting companies where you can basically go and you can rent a block of GPUs somewhere on the cloud, and then you install a local model. So something like ChatGPT, OSS, you install it on their computers. So you'll have a little partition on their servers. And let's have a look at the prices. So an H100 used to have a much better pricing table. Here we go, on-demand cloud pricing. So let's say I wanted 8 GPUs, graphical processing units. It doesn't say which ones they are, but I assume they were, oh yeah, the H100s. So if I wanted 8 H100 cards, that's going to cost me $3 per GPU per hour. So 3 times 8 is, I should know this, 24. So $24 per hour to rent that server. Obviously, depending on what you're doing, if you are training a large language model, then you're going to need a lot of capacity. That's where a lot of the power is needed. If you are just running a large language model, you do not need as much power. So inference requires far less compute than actually training a model. So this is how you do it. You could buy the GPUs yourself. It's generally not worth it because new GPUs come out and then you'll have to sell your GPUs and get other GPUs. It's not worth it for most people unless you are running an actual lab building large language models. So instead, you rent them from a company like Lambda. You can also do it on AWS. You can do it via Google. There are many, many ways to do it. So what you're going to look up, you just Google something like AI cloud pricing or AI cloud rental, and you're going to be able to find GPUs or GPU rental. And that's how you do it, because otherwise, far too expensive. I mean, Elon Musk is spending billions. They're talking about, billions being spent on data centers right now. So it is now no longer practical for individuals to train large language models. Sorry, you can do it as a hobby, but you cannot do it as something that's going to compete with the big 5 or 6 companies. What you can do though is you can rent a server and you can run a model, and you don't do it at home. You do it on a rented server. Ronald says, thank you. I guess creative industries will continue to contract and be hard to be in. Yeah. Yeah, I don't see any other way. As I said before, they were already difficult. They were sorry, they were a good way to live because not everything's about money, but to make money and survive and buy a house, and I don't know where you live, but if you live in somewhere like London, where I am, it's just very expensive just to exist, just to go out the door and have a coffee and a sandwich. Suddenly, I'm like, oh, where's that money gone? So depending on what lifestyle you want, what kind of quality of life, how much cash you need, the creative industry is going to become more and more difficult. That said, maybe you are remote, maybe you're living in a low cost country. That's what I did for most of my 20s. I would live primarily in Asia and make money in America. So there's an arbitrage opportunity there. Yes, you could absolutely be a creative, but if you are living in a city like London as a creative trying to get by, it's going to be hard. That's all. It doesn't mean that that shouldn't be your path because everyone has different priorities. But in terms of financial, purely financial, it will be difficult, unfortunately. Do you think AI will lead to mass unemployment or will the government step in? Um, this is a big question. So I think the next 10, 15, maybe 20 years are going to be messy. I don't think there's any way around that. Um, because industries are going to be reshuffled. And right now, our governments, uh, they don't really know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing generally. So to throw something into the mix like artificial intelligence is asking a lot of them. So there are talks about things like UBI, Universal Basic Income. And those discussions are not even being had at the government level. So I think there's a lot of burying of the heads in sand. I often talk about China and how China is a bit different. I lived in China for quite a while. China are thinking about these things. Our Western, I'm going to start promoting communism here, but our Western governments tend to think in very short time horizons of 3 to 4 years, basically when the next election is. What that means is it's very hard to do long-term planning. And something like artificial intelligence and working out how we're going to deal with this, how we're going to deal with potentially the undermining of multiple industries, the undermining of capitalism, because if people aren't earning money, they can't buy stuff. And if they're not buying stuff, other companies start to collapse because capitalism's kind of built on us earning money to buy stuff and then that feeding back in to pay wages. That can potentially have the bottom kicked out because if you suddenly have 20%, 25%, 30% of people unemployed, there's not any money to go back into it, into the system, into the loop. These are big questions that I don't have that much confidence in our governments being able to solve right now. I just don't think that they are forward thinking enough to be able to tackle these issues. In the UK specifically, they've made a lot of noise about AI and how it's going to, take our economy into the future. But the investment is just not there. There isn't enough money to make this reasonable. We had things like a couple of weeks ago, Meta, so Zuckerberg's company, who own Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, etc. They gave a grant, or they gave £1 million to no, $1 million, I think it was, even less, to the UK government to invest in artificial intelligence, and had a big ceremony, and it was on the front page of the BBC for 1 million. So 1 million is, I mean, it's not nothing, and Meta had no obligation to give the UK government anything at all. But the fact that they gave them 1 million, it just seems it's table scraps basically, because the very same week Zuckerberg was hiring AI engineers and giving them $100 million bonuses. So he was giving $100 million to multiple individuals, engineers, and then he gave $1 million to the UK government. And we made a big deal about it. Like, oh, here we go. This is our AI future. So I don't think our government knows what they're doing. Peter Kyle, who is in kind of the forefront of all of this, I think um, he's he's doing what he can, but unless there's money to put behind these technologies and to retrain people and to get access to these technologies, it doesn't really matter. We can say all we want about our AI future and our AI enabled government, etc. but it's just words, it's hot air. So when it comes to things like UBI, which is going to require immense amount of cash to be able to pull off, and immense amount of finesse to make sure it doesn't collapse our society, I just don't know if they have the chops to pull it off. So somewhere like China, because they are thinking 10, 20, 30 years ahead, have a better chance. But in the UK and the US, no, I don't think we can rely on them. So this is why I always tell people, and this is why I do this kind of educational content, is basically saying this is the best opportunity I've ever seen, in all my years of kind of building businesses online and helping other businesses as a consultant. This is the most opportunity filled moment. It's the time where you can build a business very quickly, using the AI tools we have at our disposal. You don't need to build an AI business. You can build any business, but you can get that business up and running very, very, very quickly using artificial intelligence. So I think that's a huge opportunity at the same time. So my main recommendation is that people prepare themselves for the uncertainty that's coming by building something which allows them to generate their own income. So when I first started online businesses 20 years ago, I had to do everything. I had to build the product, I had to do customer service, build the website, do the e-commerce connections, etc. And I had to either learn all of that myself, which I did, and it took a very long time, and I didn't make any money for years, which was not ideal, or you had to hire somebody, and it would be expensive. And if you didn't have cash coming in already, that was pretty tricky to do. Right now, we basically have a team of experts that we can go to. We can go to ChatGPT and say, look, I've got this business idea. What are the steps to get this done? What do I physically need to do? And you can get checklists, you can get it to help you with. And then each of those steps would be something like, oh, you need to make a landing page that's going to convince people to join a wait list, for example. You can go back to ChatGPT and say, hey, I need to make a wait list landing page. Can you help me with that? What does that look like? Can you get examples of successful pages? Help me construct this. How do I build this into a website, etc. We have an expert in our pocket, and we can use ChatGPT and other AI tools to very rapidly deploy a business. I'm building websites and tools right now with Lovable. Again, not sponsored by them. Lovable, if you're watching, happy to be sponsored by you. I do love your product, so I might as well get paid for it. But I can build now in hours, what would have taken me weeks before, which allows me to get more things out of the door much faster and to test things out and to build my business. So it's a really exciting time if you want to go your own way and you want to carve out your own path, which I think is increasingly important, because we cannot rely on our jobs, on our companies to work it out. I talk to lots of CEOs, hopefully none of them are watching it, but they don't really know what's going on with artificial intelligence. And I'll go into a room with a board and they'll be like, we want to do AI. That's insufficient. And so there's going to be a lot of companies who are going to flounder in the next few years because they haven't worked out what's going on. At the same time, I don't think we can rely on our governments. So increasingly, I think we need to rely on ourselves and to carve out our own space online. And thankfully, at the same time as all this chaos is happening, there are the tools that allow us to do that, which are artificial intelligence building tools. So it's scary and it's exciting at the same time. But it depends on what you want to do with these tools. But I would say do not bury your head in the sand, but instead embrace and try to build something with these things, because most people are still scared of this stuff. And if you can get a couple of years out ahead of them, build something, build a business, start helping other people, for example, you'll be in a good position. Do you have a job that I can join? No, so we don't. Actually, that's not true. I just hired an editor, but we don't. There's two of us, myself and my business partner. That's it in terms of like employees. We don't hire people. Increasingly, we don't really need to, because one, artificial intelligence, so we automate a lot with AI, and then anyone we do hire will tend to be a contractor or a freelancer, because we run very, very lean. I think increasingly businesses will work in this way. I mean, already businesses have been moving towards contractors for the last decade or so. But I think with AI as well, this will also be the case where if a job can be fulfilled by artificial intelligence, it will. So we kind of practice what we preach, and we run very, very lean. So it's just two of us, myself and my business partner, and that's kind of it. Sorry. Kyle, do you feel bad for people that started learning software development in the last 5 years? No, no, no. I think it's wonderful. It's a really useful skill. So even when you are vibe coding, when you are building something using an artificial intelligence, it's really helpful to know how software works. So I made a huge mistake in the last few days. So I'm building a site which is going to be for search engine optimization in order to rank on Google. And I messed up. So I've built this whole thing. It's beautiful. And it's taken me a few days to build. I mean, not massive, but it's still a lot of time, a lot of energy. And I've realized the whole thing is built with client-side rendering, which is technical, but basically for Google to be able to read the website and to index it and to show it to people on Google, it needs to be server-side rendering. So I've just made this huge architectural problem because I blindly went in, didn't do the research, made a mistake, and I've built something which is no longer fit for purpose. Because I basically mucked up at the beginning. So now I'm having to work out how to convert it, etc., etc. If I was a much better software developer than I am, that wouldn't have been an issue, because I would have known going in to instruct my tools, my AI tools, hey, this is really important. This needs to be server-side rendering. This cannot be client-side rendering. I would have known it up front. I kind of knew this, but I didn't know explicitly enough to tell the tool. Whereas if you have been learning software development, if you know a programming language, if you know how software is architectured, is that the word? Yeah. You are in a much better position to start to use these tools as well. What I'm seeing, though, which is a bit of a risk, are the people who have they've spent years honing their craft as a software developer, and they see these AI tools as a threat, which they are to their jobs. So they are refusing to use them. I think that is a big mistake. I think if you can combine years and years and years of software development expertise with the newest AI tools that can speed you up, that puts you in a really good position. That puts you in a much better position than somebody who doesn't know the first thing about coding and is using a vibe coding tool, because they're going to make mistakes. They're going to have insecure software, for example. And it puts you in a better position than the coders who refuse to use these tools as well. So if you can combine the two, perfect. You're in a really, really good position, and I envy you. So 5 years of software development learning, that puts you in a great position. How much of a role do you think AI played in poor US job numbers? Oh yeah, this was the. Now remind me, it was about new jobs, wasn't it? Let me put it up. And didn't he fire the? Yeah, he fired the. Sorry, it's just the. You don't like the statistics, you fire her. So here we go. Trump axes the Labour statistics chief after his poor jobs report. I believe the numbers were phony, so I fired her. So this poor lady, Erica Muckentaffer, was confirmed by the Republican-led Senate in an 86-8 vote last year, and she's just been fired because the statistics that she returned, which is her job, showed that the economy only added 73,000 jobs in July. So here we go. President Donald Trump fired the chief labor statistician after the Bureau of Labor Statistics released its monthly job report showing that the economy only added 73,000 jobs in July. The numbers come the same day that Trump resumes his global tariffs. So this was last Friday. Hours later, Trump criticized Erica Muckentaffer, I'm going to say that wrong, sorry, the commissioner for the Bureau of Labor Statistics, implying she could not be trusted because former President Joe Biden nominated her. We need accurate job numbers, he posted. I have directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately, all caps. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified. Important numbers like these must be fair and accurate. They can't be manipulated. They can't be manipulated for political purposes. Oh God, he is funny sometimes. So he's saying these numbers need to be non-political, and he fired her when he didn't like the numbers. Okay, it's beautiful. It's awful and horrifying and terrifying, but you can't make this up. So yeah, so the normal number of jobs added, I think it's about 150. Yeah, here we go. It's about 150,000. So the report showed that the unemployment rate of 4.2% ticked up slightly, but even more damning, the Bureau also downwardly revised the number of jobs added in May from 144,000 jobs to only 19,000 jobs, while it revised the number of jobs added in June from 147,000 to 14,000. So 90% decrease. So I don't know, without looking at it in more detail, I don't know whether this is caused by AI. However, let's see, there's probably a mention of AI. So a lot of companies right now, CEOs are doing job reductions. They're removing staff, and they're saying AI is the reason. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. They probably just overhired, and now that the economy's in a bit of a dumpster fire, although when hasn't it been? Hasn't it been recently? They are using AI as a nice, convenient excuse because that's a nice way to, well, sorry, it's a good way for them as the leaders to be able to cut jobs without admitting that they're not growing the company. So generally, when you're cutting jobs, that makes your company look weak because, oh, you can't afford to keep these people on. What's going on? There's something wrong with the company. So that's a very bad signal for the stock market and for the investors. And the investors who are in that company, investors in that company would be like, oh, what's going on? We don't have confidence in your leadership. Why are you cutting these jobs? Does that mean we're not growing? Why don't you have enough money? So AI is a really good excuse if you have an overinflated headcount and you need to cut them without seeming weak as a leader, because you can cut those jobs now and you can say, oh, it's because of our AI efficiencies. So we've dropped 1,000 jobs because AI. So that allows you to put on this performance almost that we're losing these jobs because we don't have the money to pay them, but oh, we're still keeping the same efficiencies in place because we have artificial intelligence. So it's a nice narrative. A bit further down the line, somebody might kind of, 6 months down the line, somebody will notice, oh, but our revenue figures are falling. The company doesn't seem to be doing as well. And then you can say, oh, well, we've had some trouble integrating our AI into the systems or whatever it is, or you can just blame it on the economy. So I think it's being used as a convenient excuse right now, which skews the numbers. What I think is interesting, though, is the mechanism I think that AI is going to disrupt the labor market is not by causing people to be fired, because firing somebody and replacing them with an AI is still quite difficult. Our agentic systems aren't good enough, basically. They might be, but they're not yet. So I think most of those firings, if somebody's directly fired and AI is the cause, that's probably just a nice, easy cover. What I think is more dangerous for the labor market, though, is the non-creation of new jobs. So we've seen this at like graduate schemes, for example, in the Big Four. We're seeing this in legal firms, in professional firms, where the intake of new people coming in is being decreased because the same number of people coming in can now do more work because of artificial intelligence. I think this is the dangerous part. And this actually aligns with this report from Erica, where it's less jobs are being created. I think this is how AI is going to undercut labor markets. So it's not direct firing, but just not creating new jobs in the first place. So that aligns with my theory here. I don't know. I'd have to look into the data, and we probably won't know for another couple of years what's actually going on. Everything will shake out, and we'll be able to look back in hindsight at this kind of movement and be like, oh yeah, that was definitely AI. But I think right now it's really hard to unpick this kind of data. So potentially. So it's not a very definitive answer, but I think maybe I think AI is going to undercut new jobs, and this could be happening already in this report, but it's hard to tell. Or maybe Trump's right and she's making up figures. I don't think that's the case. Bish Bosh Bash 1638 says, how do you get your first workshops? What companies do you do them at now? So for first workshops, I highly recommend doing them for charities. So put together an AI workshop teaching people how to use artificial intelligence, and then go and approach charities and non-profits in your local area. They're not getting enough training, and this is a really good way for, well, one, for you to build up your confidence giving workshops, because you're not getting paid. That kind of removes the financial pressure, so that you can just go and perform. And if you have any concerns about being up on stage or in your material, this is a good way to kind of remove that, at least for your first workshop. Off the back of that free workshop that you're going to give to a charity, you can get a review, you can get testimonials, you can get photos of yourself up on stage, and you're starting to build up social proof, which you can use to get paying clients. So I would start with a charity or a non-profit as the first way to go. From there, you can either start to approach companies directly, and now you have a photo of you on stage giving a workshop, you have, a good review, testimonial, so it's going to be easier. Or what a lot of my students do is they will go to an organization like the Chamber of Commerce in America, or BNI, the Business Networking Initiative. I don't know what the I stands for, in the UK or globally, and give a talk at one of these kind of events. So it's an event that has mixed businesses. You can also do this via Meetup if you're in a large city. So I've given lots of workshops at London-based meetups. They're always looking for people to come and talk because they need to fill those spaces. So you can go and do that, and you can do that for free, because again, what that does is it puts you in front of multiple business owners. And then after you give that workshop, you're going to get people coming up to you and saying, hey, can you come to my company and give me a workshop? So I have a student called Joshua who did this. He licensed my materials, and I think 2 days later or 3 days later, he gave his first workshop, which is amazing. And that's all Joshua. It's got nothing to do with me. He just nailed it. He went and gave a workshop to a group of, I think, 10 mortgage broker owning companies. So guys who owned mortgage brokerages in Washington State, USA. And then off the back of that free workshop, which he gave to these 8 to 10 different business owners, he got paid clients immediately. And one guy came up to him afterwards and said, I want you to come and advise. I want you to come and give a workshop. How much is it? And Joshua didn't blink. He was like, oh, it's $1,000 an hour. And the guy was like, cool. Yeah, we want you for 2 hours. And just like that, boom, he was straight in, and he was starting to get paid to give workshops. So I would start with that. I'd start with free, either to a charity or to a business networking group of some kind of type. And then from the back of that, you can get paid work. And make sure you get reviews, photos, and testimonials. So it's really, really important, because that's going to be what goes in your one pager and on your website, etc. And it shows that you are actually doing these things. Oh, and you said, what companies do you do them at now? So me personally, I pass on a lot of my workshops that I don't want to do personally. And I do, this sounds bad, but I do the ones that are international in locations I want to go to. So I combine them with holidays. So I'll go over and teach for an hour, and then spend a week or so at that location, because that works for me and my lifestyle. So for me, I cherry pick them, and then I pass on the other ones to students and other people. Cool. So that brings us to about an hour, which is the end of the show. We will have a lot of news tomorrow, I think. So I'm going to be up late tonight, I think, playing with GPT-5 if it releases. Fingers crossed. It looks pretty certain though. So tomorrow, which is going to be Friday, I'm going to report back with what I think of GPT-5 so far. And I'd love to hear your opinions as well. So if you hop on the live stream, we can chat about it. So yeah, I think that's all the news for today. It's kind of holding our breath for GPT-5 and the big announcement later today. Again, it's going to be at 6 p.m. London time if you are in the UK. So if you do want to watch it, it'll be about an hour's long, and I'm sure they're always good shows. And if you want to find this content later, it's all going to be on YouTube. We clean it up, we chop it up. It's all available in shorter videos. I'm still building my YouTube presence and it's taking a very long time. So as I ask every single day, if you can go and follow me there, that would be really useful. Even if you don't want to watch me there, still follow me. Oh, that worked yesterday. There was a huge spike in subscribers yesterday. That's nice. I'll show you what, if you're watching on one of the other, this is probably interesting to you guys. If you're watching on YouTube or any other format, I'm going to show you what I can see. So this is what the YouTube looks like. And basically, since I've started doing this live show, since we've started to cut up the clips and do shorts off the back of it, everything has just been growing. It is an incredibly large amount of work. I do not recommend it for anyone else, but I will create a guide of the exact process. Very briefly though, I do a morning live update every single day, which is 1 hour talking to camera, talking to people live, answering questions. That's what you're watching right now if you're on the live. We then carve that live up into the individual segments. So there's probably 3 to 5 segments. So today we talked about GPT-5. We talked about the Labour MP who has an AI avatar. We talked about the Trump firing of the Labour Secretary, the Bureau of Statistics Secretary, etc., etc. Each of those will become a video, which is 10 minutes long or so. That will go on the YouTube. And then we also cut out short 30 to 60 second long shorts, which are basically sound bites, which also go on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc., etc. So it means that 1 hour live, what I'm doing right now, suddenly turns into about 30 pieces of content. Which is what YouTube seems to like. So we're able to put out a massive amount of information and a massive amount of content, basically becoming a media company, all off the back of one piece of content, using artificial intelligence to help us with the edits. We've also hired a human editor who started a few days ago. And then there's a lot of human processes as well. I'm trying to automate as much as possible, but at the end of the day, humans are still better at some tasks than artificial intelligence. But that's allowed us to really start spiking on YouTube, which is great. And it's taken a lot of work, but we will continue to do so. So make sure you are subscribed on the YouTube if you like what we're doing, because that really, really helps me. And it's kind of the sign I should keep doing it, if that makes sense. Sorry, that sounds like blackmail. I'm going to stop doing it. I won't, but it really helps me to get up in the morning and do it every day. There's also a newsletter, which is free. If you look at the link in the bio, there's a free daily update newsletter, which is basically what I'm covering, but in text form with links to the specific videos. You can find the information that you most want to know about. Cool. That is me signing off for today. And I will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m.-ish London time, depending on how late I go to bed after playing with GPT-5 all day. And I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, guys.